like the, if you notice, it looks like the actual, it looks like the rotor is part of the actual hub, eh? This all is one piece. So guess what, when you're changing the rotor on this particular vehicle, whatever it is, whatever it may be, actually it might be a Ford, I recognize these anchors. You're gonna have to get the rotor with the actual hub with the bearing races inside. So this is probably a very expensive rotor. So first, you see the seam here, take a flat chisel and just work your way around. See how it moved a little bit? Moved around here, okay? Move a little bit more, right? Almost there, a couple of taps. And again, like I said, most old cars that are rear wheel drive, if you have a free floating front bearing, will have this type of design, okay? All right. Take it off.
So that's how they scam you out of money, no? That's how they scam you out of money, no?
What do you mean?
By having to replace the whole assembly when you do.
No, we'll get to that. There are reasons when you have to replace the whole thing. In case of the braking system, you want to, if you have you say you're replacing the brake pads, if your surface in this case, if you look at it, it's quite pitted and oxidized. It's all black and pitted. You'd have to machine it, right? But that's another story which Mr. Rush will explain to you about when you can, when you cannot. In terms of the actual assembly, that's what we have to do. We have to remove this bearing to inspect the race. If the raceways are damaged, then you can potentially, if you don't have a problem with the brakes, you can buy the actual racing bearings and hammer them in. You can hammer them in too, right? So, very uncommon for me to replace these types of bearings. Usually if you keep them serviced, right? Keep them greased periodically. Rarely am I replacing bearings. Usually every 30K, 24 to 30K, re-grease, put them back. The more the better, right? If you look at the repair manual, or if you look at your owner's manual for your vehicle, it will have the interval for this. So don't concern yourself with that. I just want to show you the process, how to take this bearing apart. So, who knows what this is called? Cotter pin. What's the job of the cotter pin? What does it look like? It keeps this nut in place, right? So we need to remove this cotter pin. Now, with this particular design, I don't really, do I have a pair of side cutters here? I like to use a pair of side cutters, right? I can try using this jaw pliers first. We need to reuse it, right? And it's totally fine to reuse it. Turn your cotter pin this way, turn the cotter pin that way, right? And this is where the side cutters come into play. You can grip it and pull it out, but this might work too. So you take this, hold on. Well, this is probably better. You want more grip, so watch this. Look at this, I'm creating a lever here. What kind of lever do you think I'm doing? The fulcrum is where the tip meets the bolt, the nut, right? The load is in the between the lever and the fulcrum. What kind of lever? This would be a class 1. No, class 2 lever. Class 2 lever. I created a class 2 lever with my pliers. Watch, watch. You see that? I'm just gripping the pliers. So I'm not pulling with my arm like that, but let's just imagine if it was, I'm just too strong, I'm too strong. So what I was trying to do was this, try to show you, there's times when these cotter pins get stuck. And what I did was this, if those who can't see, I grip the cotter pin, I rest the tip of the pliers on the nut, and I created a lever. You grip and you just pry like that, and you use the pivot point to get the cotter pin out. So we can reuse this, so we'll leave that there. Next, there's your retaining nut, and behind there will be a washer. So first, let's get this retaining nut out. In the past, I used to just use an adjustable wrench. No big deal, right? All right, let's see if we have anything that goes that big. We won't have anything that big. So let's see if we have channel locks. No. Okay, I'll be right back and I'll get a pair of pliers to deal with that. 1 second. It's a hard statement.
That's a smart idea.
He's the smart guy.
Imagine just make it straight. Imagine that, just straight hammer right in your hand. The most useless weapon ever. You feel this, you just put it down.
Just for sake of explanation and for time, obviously you'd use, a socket and all that, but these aren't too tight usually. A pair of channel locks will be fine. In the field, I used to just use adjustable pliers and channel locks, and I'll get it out. It's not too tight, right? Just crack it loose a little bit. you loosen it. Okay, careful when you're doing this. Look at that. See that? See that axial deflection? You keep your hand there. You don't want this falling on your foot. Like, see that? Look, if I let go, it comes forward. See? So keep your hand there. Okay, we're gonna take the retaining nut. Sometimes the retaining nut, guys, sometimes the retaining nut will be a castle nut. Who knows what a castle nut is? Where you it looks like the top of a castle, right? And then the castle part is when you can slot the cotter pin through. Okay, everybody pay attention, seriously. Okay, so next, here's your washer, right? This is a spacer.
The tapered roller.
That's just the outer tapered roller. Okay, put that down. I'm gonna take this out now. There's your inner. Now, there are many designs. Sometimes, see, this is not supposed to happen. I'll show you what's supposed to happen. This bearing is supposed to stay in here. This is defective. If you see this is not right. This bearing should stay in here. This oil seal should have retained the bearing in the actual hub. Well, you don't need to press it. It's just the grease that's holding it there. So for here, I'm just using a flat edge just to guide it out. It's not supposed to be like that, okay? Normally, when you take out a tapered roller, this should be here, and this oil seal should be nice and tight. Normally, when you take it apart, it'll look like that. Get a video of that. So everybody who can't see, normally when you remove it, the inner bearing will be inside the race, and the oil seal, this thing on the outside that's holding the grease in, it's called the dynamic oil seal. That's holding it in place. Okay? In which case, the reason why this is loose is because the student demo, probably the teacher just lightly slapped it on so that he wouldn't have to pry it off. But the proper way to do this, I'll show you a trick. Okay? If you were replacing this seal and you didn't really care, of course you can use a seal tool. It's like basically a pry bar that's really curved. You put it under here and pry it off, but you damage the seal. There's another way to get it off, and I'll show you how.
So this is a castle nut.
That's a castle nut. Okay, so I'll show you how to take out the inner bearing with the seal. So normally, I want you to understand, this seal is really tight normally. In a real world situation, when you remove this hub, you take out the outer tapered roller, the inner tapered roller will be stuck inside still. So how you take it out, you go like this. Just loosely fit it on. Okay, stop playing with this. Okay, see, this is coming apart now. Okay, can you do that for me? I'm gonna support this. Okay, crank it. Oh, wait, go back, sorry. Okay, crank it. Watch your fingers. Okay, what you do is this. Check this out. Let me show you a trick.
So bad. What do you mean?
You take this. You take your retaining nut. Watch this. Just put it on there a few threads, just loosely. Okay. You grab your hub. And normally, again, because this seal is already very, 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 very loose. Okay? Had it been really tight, like on a real car, the seal would have been like that after I pulled off the rotor. Do you understand? I'm using the retaining nut to keep the tapered roller from coming out, and the tapered roller will force out the back of the oil seal without damaging it. So then you would remove this.
So you're gonna use an oil seal after?
Yeah, in this case, yes. Specifically, the one on this car is junk, but if you actually had a healthy oil seal, because when you're removing it, when you use this, it's not going to damage the seal. Okay. So, in a real world situation, all this old grease, before you take it off, actually, do we have any paper towel? I don't even worry about it. You wipe it clean. A couple of things you got to inspect when you wipe it clean. Okay, make sure that the surfaces that the bearings ride on, okay, there's no, nicks and burrs or any damage, right? The threads for your actual retaining nut, make sure these threads are nice and clean, right? This should go on nice and smooth, okay? Nice and smooth. You shouldn't have to use tools just to thread this on, okay? And after it's on, make sure the threads aren't so damaged that there's free play, okay? It's very important. Okay. If it's just minor like burrs, you can clean it up with a thread chaser. But another thing is make sure that the snout here for the cotter pin, there's no fracturing, there's no cracks here, all that on the snout. So now imagine we have that new hub. You basically, now you inspect. So you inspect. Okay. Normally you would see the most damage when you look at the actual raceways, right? You clean up the actual raceways here. The raceway is what? Where the bearing sits, where the actual bearings roll back and forth, right? You clean up the inner and outer raceways, okay? And you'd look for irregular wear patterns, right? Obviously overheating, you'd see a rainbow color. If the surface is not smooth, bottom line, if you move your nails across the surface and you feel your nails digging into grooves and imperfections, no good. If you have a bearing where one of the rollers is damaged, let's say one of the rollers is jumping and it's not spinning properly, it's got a flat surface, you'll have little notches all the way around, right? In this case, this race is fine, it's clean, okay? If you look at it, it's no problem, no wear, because this has probably just been a demo bearing for the longest time. There's no wears, no nicks, nothing out of the ordinary, right? When you look at the other bearings, right? You look at all the rollers, look at all the bearings, look at the cage, make sure there's nothing damaged, okay? Then you reinstall everything. So first things first, obviously you reinstall the back bearing. Before you install the back bearing, you take a lot of rags, clean off all the grease, all the old grease, right? In here is not so much, unless you see that it's black and you might have some debris. All you need is bearing grease, general purpose bearing grease. Take a handful of it, put dollops of it inside, put some on the shaft here, right? Don't go crazy on these areas here because you don't want it to keep the bearing from actually sitting flush. So how do we pack the bearing? I want to see if we have bearing grease. If we have bearing grease, I'll show you how to actually do it.
Mr. Rahman, what is this?
That is the outer roller bearing.
Is that the one that yesterday I said roller bearing?
That's, yeah, this is tapered roller bearing. Oh, this is bigger than this is
Okay,
smaller.
so, all right. This is bearing grease, okay? Everybody want to taste? Want to taste? Sure, sir. It just tastes like those Macintosh toffee bars. Butterscotch, okay? Now, this is the old school way. There are tools. I don't know if we have here, but there's bearing packing tools where you drop the bearing into a receptacle that's filled with grease. You put a press and you push it down and all the grease gets forced through the bearing. So the key to putting this is not packing the bearing. Doing that's not greasing the bearing, just laying it on like that, throwing it. No, what you gotta do is you take it, it's messy. I usually wear gloves, put a little bit of grease in your hands, right? What do you think's next?
Squeeze it and then roll it through your hand.
Well, no. Okay, so this is filled with old grease. This has been a demo piece, that's why the grease in here is very clean. As they get old, the grease in here gets probably really black or even like brown because of the water contamination. Watch this, you do this. Push down, and watch this. Watch what happens in a moment. I'm basically forcing grease in between the cage and the inner race. Okay, watch. Filming that?
Yes.
You see the top?
Yes.
Everybody see that? Look at the top. You see that? Look at the top. All the old grease is being forced out by the new grease. That's what you want to do. That's how you pack a bearing. Okay? You get a piece of paper towel, wipe all this garbage, get some more new grease, put a little bit in your hand, right? And just go like this. Okay? You should keep going. Just be patient, right? See? See? That's how you grease a tapered roller bearing. Okay? Or any kind of roller bearing usually. You want to get it between the cages, right? Now, like I said, there are tools, and I used to have one, or it's not used to. I have it at the shop that I work at. It's just sitting there. I don't deal with these types of bearings too much anymore. But if you're dealing with trucks, for sure, if you work up north, or you're working at a shop that has trailers, guaranteed. Okay, so on and so forth. You go all the way around, right? Anybody want to try?
Yes.
How did I know Muhammad would want to try? Someone hold this phone for him. It's easy to wipe, don't worry. Your hands won't be too dirty. It's just greasy. So take that, take a little bit and put it in your palm like that. Take a little bit and put it in your palm. Let me pat you on the back. I'm just kidding. Okay, so that's it. And you slowly go a little bit at a time and you're forcing the new grease into the cage.
Like this?
Yeah, just don't go too much. Just go a little bit at a time.
Okay.
And then push down. Push it down into the grease. You're forcing the grease into the cage, right?
Okay.
See?
Playing with folders.
There you go.
I'm getting.
You see how it's coming out the top? So when you see that the same color grease
Oh,
at the
I
top,
got it now.
so the grease coming out is the same colors as the grease that you're putting in, you're good.
Yeah.
You good?
Yeah, I understand now. Yeah.
Very good. So take that grease, don't waste it, just pop it back in there. Just take that grease, pop it back in there. Anybody else want to try? We got to do the outer. Anybody want to try? No, this guy, look at him. This is like GQ, man. He can't get through, man.
There you go.
He's got to pose for pictures after the soccer team.
Yeah, I do it.
Seriously? Okay. Maybe roll up your sleeves, brother.
My hand.
Someone help him.
You were about to give him his
So
phone.
you do this one. Okay? Very good. So this is good. I'll drop that in for now. You just need a little bit, just put a little dollop in the palm of your hand. You take that new bearing and you force out the old grease.
It's like butterscotch. Tastes like your
Yeah, it
grandmother's
just tastes like
cookies.
butterscotch.
The
Just
grandmother's
go to
candies in their
the
purse.
Tim Hortons, the marble slab, just mix that in there. Put some gummy bears and just mix that in there.
Sir, it tastes like those rock hard candies.
Nope,
that
so
grandma
not
used
like,
to
hold
give
on guys. You see how Christoph's doing the actual face? No. You're basically forcing it into this gap. So downwards. Force it in, no? Yeah, like that. No, let me show you. Give me the bearing. Okay. No, don't do that. We're just joking. It doesn't taste like butterscotch. This is petroleum, right? Look, what you were doing before was this, okay? Not like that, just like this. Straight down. Straight down, straight down, straight down. Watch. See the grease coming up? Okay. See that? Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. See how the grease coming up? Yeah? From the top? All right.
Yeah.
I can tell Isabella wants to get in on this and get it all over.
Fuck off.
Hey,
Well, that video is gonna be on passing now. This is what a
Video.
great training video.
it's like one of those Robin Williams
Anybody
shows.
know how to edit videos? You're gonna have to edit it out. Just put like a reggae horn or something. Off. And put some tunes to this. There you go.
Some smooth jazz.
Yeah, it's some smooth jazz. 91.1. Yeah, some smooth jazz. All
No, the beginning of the video is fuck off.
right. But you see what I'm doing? You see what happens, right? Right? So you did half of it. So, guys, here's a good example. If you look here, there's still a lot of dirty grease. So if you were actually doing this job, guys, come over here, please. If you were actually doing this job, this is not good enough.
No.
You want to keep wiping and keep putting new grease until the grease that comes out of the bearing is also yellow. If you see that there's still black grease coming out with the debris, that's not good. Yeah. Okay? Are we clear? Pretty straightforward, right? You keep going. Usually you can go a little faster too, right? You can go a little faster.
It's not lotion.
This is not lotion, man. Stop it. Stop rubbing it into your pores, okay? Stop it. Stop it. This is like the scene from like Zoolander where they're like spraying gasoline on each other. So, all right. So let's just pretend we got it all done. Anybody else want to try this? Okay. So we'll just set this down. Someone do me a favor and get Chris and myself a lot of paper towel. Just bring a whole bunch.
Mohammed.
Muhammad doesn't need any. It already absorbed.
Muhammad's like, I moisturize my beard.
Mohammed.
What did he say?
He just rubbed it in his beard.
No, don't do that, man. What are you doing? Okay. Hold it there. Yeah, so I can just grab something. Go wash your face, man. Go wash your face. It's okay. It's heavy. It's heavy grease. It's heavy grease. Okay. So guys, ladies and gentlemen, so now that we've greased the bearing, now we pop it back in, right? Normally you want to use a seal driving tool. Guys, normally we want a seal driving tool that's the same diameter as the seal. But this one's so bloody loose already because this is a game, it's a demonstration. We're just going to gently tap it in. That's another thing. When you're driving something in with a hammer, how do you tell it's all the way? Listen to the sound. If you notice, when I was initially hitting it, it was tak 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 dang 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 dang. Then you hear the sound. It's just like it's like Chinese New Year, right? Okay, that's it. Dang 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 dang. Everybody, Chinese New Year. Okay, so all right. So next, now we take this assembly. Again, in the real world, wipe the rotor of all the grease. I would have washed my hands already, kind of thing. I don't get grease off all over this. But right now, at this, so you heard that, right? If we were actually doing this, make sure there's no grease. No grease on the surface of the rotor,
So
right?
could you use brake cleaner?
Yes, yes. Okay. No, that's okay. Just perfect. So now we're gonna do the opposite. So, I would have taken some grease, right? Let's do this. Right?
Egghead ass. Looking like a Malteser.
Okay. Nick, film this, please.
Yeah, he touched
We'll
my
do
back.
a dance video later. Okay. All right.
Everyone's got your orange dress.
That's it. Right. Okay, so watch. Put that in. You have your new bearing, sorry, you have your outer bearing that's already greased, right? I'm gonna put that here. Walk it in. Don't forget your washer, the thrust washer here. Okay?
Sir, do you have to grease that too?
No, just keep the main thing, the bearings are the grease, but don't put too much grease between the washer and the nut and all that kind of stuff, right? Because if it creates a barrier, it potentially can come loose. I'm just doing it very crudely, right? Okay, so first, when you go into your repair manual, listen up, okay? There will be some sort of torque related associated with this, okay? But there's not just torque. The sequence is you would torque it, back it off, spin it around, tighten it back up again, and then put your lock. But that's, if you just basically, if I ask you how you do this step, how to torque this, check your repair procedure. They'll give you a specific amount of torque for this bearing, okay? But the old school way, how you would do it, first now you have to, basically you have two loose fitting bearings. You want to seat them, you want to center them, right? You want to center them on the actual race. So you would take, I've always learned, just with a pair of channel locks, because you know with channel locks you'll never over tighten, because it's just relying on your hand grip, right? I would hold it nice and tight, go all the way till I can't go anymore. I can't go anymore, based on my strength, okay? Back it off. Guys, back it off. Right? Then finger tighten as much as I can with my fingers. Okay? And then just a little bit of, then,
Sir, you did drive-through from.
hold on, shh. Then cotter pin. Now, I don't know the application, but I'm curious to see, actually I was mentioning your name earlier, Koi, because the car you did, the Nissan 240SX, the front wheel bearings are exactly like this. They're not sealed ball bearings, they're tapered roller. And if you look at the repair process, when you, I would like to, even if afterwards you can look it up quickly on your car. Well, basically, I want you to pull up what torque it should be. Usually, when you do tapered roller bearing, that's how I would have done it. All the way tight, spin it around, back it off, finger tighten, then just a little bit of a wrist tighten, quarter turn, put the cotter pin, right? And you should have, normally there's a spec for the amount of deflection too, which you can look up. You put a dial indicator and just pull the rotor back and forth, and you should have some free play, okay? So then now we bend the cotter pin out of the way. Guys, bend the cotter pin out of the way. Right? You take your dust cap, pop it back in. Now, if you notice, this dust cap's mangled, but there is a lip here. If you had a dust cap installation tool, it would fit right over the lip in a uniform manner. Guys, then you would hit the tool, you wouldn't have to dent the dust cap. You want to keep it nice and even, right? But this thing's mangled, so done. So that's like a bearing service. Thank you. Congratulations, everybody. Thank you.